Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Apologies for being about 5 minutes late. Tonight, the Jeffco Board of Education will be voting on the district's recommendation for Phase 1 of Regional Opportunities for Thriving Schools. I want to preview for everyone here tonight and watching online what our schedule is going to be. We'll be hearing public comment, followed by a vote on the consent agenda. After that, the superintendent will give a report to the board, and the board will consider the Regional Opportunities for Thriving Schools resolution. This will include a reading of the full resolution, discussion by the board, and a vote by each board member. I would like to thank the people joining us here in person and online. And we also want to thank our live simultaneous Spanish interpreters who are joining us tonight. Roll call, please, Ms. Lang.
Ms. Miller?
Here?
Here. Here.
Here. Here. Thank you. If everyone could please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda for the Board of Education meeting of November 10th, 2022 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for the board meeting of November 10th, 2022 as presented. Roll call, please, Ms. Lang.
Yes. Ms. Parker? Yes. Ms. Reed? Yes. Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Dr. Varda?
Yes. All right, we'll be moving into our first item on our agenda, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for community members to share their thoughts with the board. Given the significant public interest in tonight's primary focus, the recommendation for regional opportunities for thriving schools, the two public comment sections that are typically available during the Jeffco board meeting will occur back to back. So we have those two combined. The board is following policy and practice for public comment. All community members have the opportunity to sign up for public comment through 1 p.m. yesterday, and we have that list in the order of speakers. The board will listen with respect and ask those who address the board to do the same. There is a 3-minute time limit per individual speaker, which you will see appear on the screen. If there are 4 or more people who signed up to address the board as a group, that group will have 10 minutes for their perspective to be presented. So with that, we'll begin with our first speaker, Emily Adams. Or no, yes, no. Oh, I'll just throw the papers away. So whoever has a number 1 in their hand, please welcome Ms. Lammers. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Lammers, 10795 Allendale Drive, Arvada, Colorado. And the topic is the school closures. So the pandemic exacerbated an already unacceptable downward spiral in the education of our students and the decreasing enrollment numbers in district-run schools. Cuts must no doubt be made as a reality of a looming $40 million deficit. Reserve spending has begun, but even with the closure of these 16 elementary schools, there'll be no savings this school year. If the current number of displaced students choice to the designated consolidation schools, there's a realistic question as to whether class sizes can remain at recommended levels. Parents report Fremont Elementary School, a school to which Campbell families are being directed, is already out of space with overly large class sizes. Jeffco has not redrawn boundary lines in many, many years, despite school closures and new schools being built. Redrawing boundaries would better utilize some of the existing schools, preventing the immediate need to build new schools. The district has repeatedly and over a long period of time mismanaged funds. The 2018 bond issue is a glaring example, yet the board has not confronted these issues as a group, and they continue to allow such issues to go unaddressed. There's the appearance of lower income schools repeatedly facing closure and lack of attention. No one seems to be able to produce the last long-range plan done by the district under Superintendent Jason Glass. There's a summation available, but the report itself seems to have gone missing. Therefore, there's been no consideration of the detailed information which is a part of a good long-range plan. Without a long-range plan, you risk the increased possibility of taking action now that will prove ineffective, costly, and even detrimental when integrated with subsequent action. The movement of 6th grade to middle school is a case in point. The district is now spending into reserve funds and will be required to provide a plan to the State Board of Education to show Jeffco's fiscal viability. So I implore you to stop now and do a long-range plan. Do it before displacing 2,600 students and 422 full-time staff. With so many highly paid individuals at the district administration level, including a cabinet of experts advising the superintendent, COO Steve Bell, facilities director Tim Reed, a financial oversight committee, a district accountability committee, the board can develop a short 3 to 5 year long-range plan now before closing 16 schools and putting students and staff at risk. A plan that specifically defines the thriving curriculum as more than optimistic rhetoric. A plan that considers leaving pre-K in area elementary schools as a means to boost attendance at district-run schools and provides more locations to better accommodate families and avoid the cost of converting an elementary school into a pre-K only facility. I voted for board representatives to hold the district accountable and move us forward, improving the curriculum and our academic integrity. The district does not have a long-range plan or even a clear phase 2 after closing 16 schools. We as stakeholders cannot make informed decisions about the future education of our children or the impact on our property values. I ask you to vote no with the plan as it now stands. Hold the district and the highly paid district administration staff accountable for providing their expertise to enable this board to adopt a long-range plan. Then hold the district accountable for following this plan and making necessary adjustments under the direction of this board. So please do the work that you were elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Destiny Farr. You've heard from me a couple times now. I live at 1465 South Eaton Street in Lakewood, and I'm here to talk about school closures. At this point, you've no doubt heard the multitude of issues and concerns parents, staff, students, and community members in Jeffco have with this school closure and consolidation plan being put to your vote this evening. While I can empathize with the very tough position you are all in right now, I hope that you can see the opportunity that exists in front of you. You have an opportunity to show Jeffco parents and future parents that not only are you willing to listen to us, but you will act on the input and feedback you've received in the last 2 months. You have an opportunity to not only act on our behalf, but on behalf of the entire district. Voting no tonight does not have to mean disappointment for those in support of school closures and consolidations, as that is not what those of us who dissent are asking for. We are asking for a smarter plan that includes our voices and addresses the whole picture, including the root causes of our issues in the district regarding student performance, equity, distrust for the district in our community, and low enrollment, in addition to the major budget deficit we are facing. As I know all of you know, none of these issues can be separated from the others, and it is imperative that we work together to do the hard work of creating a plan that addresses all of them instead of piecemealing changes as we go. It's my belief that instead of this short-sighted recommendation, there must be a multi-pronged approach that at a minimum, one, looks at the budget line by line to see where money is not being used effectively and efficiently to make a recommendation for cuts across the board as far away from our children as possible. Number two, addresses the families who are choicing out of our district-run schools and why. 3, works with impacted communities to come up with a school consolidation plan that has the least amount of impact on our students, especially our most marginalized and vulnerable students, and addresses not only enrollment, but cultural, financial, and logistical sensibilities as well. And number 4, a plan that takes a hard look at school performance, tutoring needs, curriculum, professional development opportunities for teachers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Only after we have done that work and put it all together should we put out a plan and recommendation to not save our schools, but save our district. At this point, I no longer feel we're fighting for schools or even articulation areas. We are fighting for our entire district, as it is clear we're on the verge of a complete disaster. It is my true belief that to vote yes on this recommendation and move forward to implement it will not only be unsuccessful for the 32 schools impacted and the thousands of children, families, and staff members, but truly for the entire district. Trust for Jeffco Public Schools is already scarily low, and the impacts of a failed plan due to a hasty decision based on fear will only push us further to the edge of that disaster. Please, for the sake of our district, and most especially for our children, vote no on this plan and get to work with us, the community who is begging you to collaborate immediately on a better solution. Please take the opportunity you have been given tonight to make good on your campaign promises and work on a solution that addresses the sad state of our district as a whole. Please vote no.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Stites. My address is 11885 West 35th Avenue in Wheat Ridge, and I'm here to talk about school closures. So I am actually a business owner in the community as well as a former Jeffco teacher. I look at this in a lot of different ways. My husband and I have spent a lot of time working directly in the schools and raising a significant amount of money, between $15,000 to $20,000 a year for the schools, just in our small business, because we think it's such an important piece in our local schools. The biggest thing I find is that we spend a lot of time in the schools, a lot. We work within the community all the time. In fact, this week we were in 4 different elementary schools, including our own, but 3 others that we were teaching and volunteering in. As a teacher and as a business owner, if I made a plan or created a lesson that backfired in my face, I would stop and go, ooh, man, what happened here? Did I present the plan incorrectly or the lesson incorrectly? Did I not have the correct materials when I put the lesson together? Did I maybe not explain it properly? I would step back and take a moment and really look at what was the problem? Where did I go wrong? I wouldn't double down and continue to push forward with a plan or a lesson that wasn't working and was clearly failing. I think that's such a big piece, because I feel like that's what this is. It's a plan that it hasn't been thought out, and maybe things that have come up since that weren't necessarily in your mind when it first started, but now have come to light. And it's really hard to watch it continue to be pushed forward when there's clearly significant problems in it. The process that you guys have gone through with this has been a massive failure. I understand that, yes, schools are going to need to close and buildings are going to close, but is it really the best way to do it? Are you certain that these schools, simply just based on black and white numbers, are the correct schools to close? Have you personally walked into these buildings, the schools that are closing, the schools that they're consolidating into, and even the schools that aren't being impacted? Because I can tell you, I've been in about 20 of these schools the past year, and there's a lot of things that aren't in black and white numbers. These parents, these teachers see a lot of that, and I feel like that's going on deaf ears right now. Your responsibility is to look at the best plan for longevity of schools in our district, not to haphazardly throw together a plan that may not be the best long-term decision for our community. Was the decision to give the district staff a raise, right as we're talking about school closures, also something that was the best appropriate use? Because I can tell you that it doesn't look good from the public eye. There's a lot of things that I think that you need to step back and really think about the way it comes across. I am going to end with quoting my child's teacher, who was here at the public hearing for Color Strand. She said it perfectly. You were willing to put the needs of your Jeffco and honestly an overinflated and disconnected district staff over the needs of staff and children who are working on the front line. I have no doubt that the kids and families will thrive after the vote, but this decision will determine if the district thrives with the school board or in spite of the school board. I really do believe that most everyone in this room would agree that they would like to thrive with you, but closing 16 schools with no public process or input the way that you've done it is not appropriate. please vote no, and let's look at alternatives or make a better plan. Give us a year. I know it's between $8 million and $10 million that you're saving, but I can guarantee that you can save that for one more year. You can deal with that for one more year. If we stepped back, I can guarantee that if you looked at this plan again, that there would be some different decisions made moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Corey Stites. I live at 11885 West 35th Avenue in Wheat Ridge. I'm here to talk about the Thriving Schools program. I've lived in Jeffco almost my entire life, other than a couple years in college. I grew up in Wheat Ridge. I went to Color Strand. I went to Everett. I went to Wheat Ridge High School. Proud graduate of the Wheat Ridge High School articulation area, as I know many of you guys are here. One thing that, as a Wheat Ridge City Council person, I've been very disappointed with is there's been no public outreach during this process. We heard about this at the same time as every other person in this room heard about this. And as a city, we need to be able to plan. We need to be able to figure out what's going on in our city. And when Jeffco is pulling the rug out from underneath us in the middle of this process, that doesn't seem fair. If you want a public process, you need to actually reach out to the public. A few years ago, when Jason Glass proposed 5 or 6 closures and only ended up closing 1, there was a process that Wheat Ridge went through called the Wheat Ridge Futures Conference. I met Stephanie Schooley there. There was a 3-day-long process where we talked about what our articulation area could look like over the next decade, 2 decades, whatever it is. None of that's happened. So Jeffco leadership has again dropped the ball. Jeffco leadership dropped the ball on a bond issue and lost money. Jeffco leadership voted in a raise for the leadership while leaving all these other schools out to dry. If we did that as a city, we'd be recalled. The last board that did that was recalled. We're looking for this board to show a little political courage, stand up to your staff, and ask for more information. Ask them to go into these schools. I would like to get a note in my son and daughter's Friday folder asking me to come to a meeting where we can actually put some input into this process, to where we can figure out what schools. We understand, and I've gotten some condescending emails back from a few of you and from the staff that says, well, no, if we close no special schools, we wouldn't close any schools. We understand that every person in this room thinks their school is special. And I believe Color Strand's an absolutely amazing community. But if it needs to close after a actual public process, I can get on board with that. What I can't get on board is the fact that our opinions didn't matter from this entire process. From the moment we had our first meeting and we had a board member stand up and say, I've already made up my mind. Now, this isn't my words in describing this process, but in a meeting that I had with the school board president at Wheat Ridge City Hall on October 3rd, I was told that this process is, and I will quote, effed up. We have completely effed up this process. This process is an S show. And if you don't believe me, if somebody's saying that that's not true, talk to the other city council people that were there. It happened. So how can you vote for a process that you believe is fouled? I don't understand that. As an elected official myself, if the staff comes to me and they've got a process that's not working, if they've got an outcome that may make sense, but the process doesn't work, and there's this many people who are saying that it didn't work, I'm going to go back and I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to say, no, we need to look at this again. I'm asking you guys to have that political courage tonight. Vote no on this, and let's go back together. Your hashtag on your Facebook page is better together. We are absolutely better together. Let's work together to make sure that this is the right thing for Jeffco moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Emily Adams. I have the displeasure of following the Stites family, which are incredible champions of our community, so want to thank them for that. I want to start out by talking about duty, something I know a lot about. Those of you that took the time to meet with me personally, Susan, Paula, Stephanie, I appreciate that. We all have a duty. We all just said the Pledge of Allegiance. Some of us actually swear oaths. Doctors swear oaths to do no harm. I swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We all have a duty. When you're an elected official, your duty is to us to be our voice. That's why you're there. Not to be our brain, not to be our heart, not to think for us, but to speak for us, to echo our voice. Because there can't be hundreds of us sitting at this table. So we lift and exalt up one of you from each of our areas so that you can say what we're saying right now. Not so you can think whatever you want to think or make your own opinion or use your heart in the process, but to say what we're asking you to say because we put you there. And we're overwhelmingly asking you to vote no. And what we're hearing from you is, well, we've already decided that we're voting yes, and we told you as an afterthought that we're voting yes, and all of this charade about public input has been exactly that. A formality, you're not listening, you're not changing the process, and that's not how you should want us to think that you do things. It's eroding public trust. The acronym for this Regional Opportunities for Thriving Schools is ROTS. What I'm hoping for is for you to stop with the rot and maybe let's do something that's, building a rope. There's several I came up with. Regional opportunities to partner with each other. Regional opportunities for partnership and excellence. For preparation and engagement. For equity. Let's be a rope, not a rot. The fallout is what none of you are considering. You're considering the data. You're all brilliant women. At least I can speak for the three of you that took the time to speak to me, so thank you for that. You are brilliant people. This isn't about whether or not things add up on paper or the black and white is telling you this is the right thing to do. This is about the people that trusted you to put you where you are, telling you that you went about this without our input, which defies your duty. It defies what elected you, and we need you to do this again where the meetings happen before the proposal and we present our concerns before the proposal. And the 8 million figure, it's not even 8 million. You're spending 1.5 million on eliminating bus fees and this and this and this nickel and diming would add that up. You can afford one more year so that we can do this the right way. And not only can you afford to, but I think you need to. I think you need to because there's no trust left. And where is our future? If you vote yes now, we know that we truly don't have a voice. We're not being heard. We can't trust you. We already don't trust the district. We need a rope, not a rot. It doesn't matter if it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Shalise Sanchez. I live at 10680 Lakewood. My topic is about the school closures and the transparency. There is so many things wrong with the plan that you have for closing these schools. For one, there is no plan. What happens next year? Do any of you guys know? No. You guys are not worried about our kids. Look how many parents are here voting or rooting for their kids, and you guys are not listening. We're talking to a wall right now. And like everyone said, this decision was already made. This meeting should have already happened a long time ago. This is hurting the kids, the teachers, the communities, and it doesn't matter. It's like everyone got pay raises. Well, why couldn't that go to the kids? Why didn't it go to the teachers? It's all like, where did you? It's like if the schools need so much money, why are you guys getting raises? Why is the district getting raises? No, give it to the schools that need it. You say teachers need more money. There's some more money, but it's like no, and it's like. I have a child who has special needs. You know how hard it is finding another school with services? I have already been looking. I'm having trouble. And it's all like, what do? I've been getting recommendations to take my daughter to a different district, 45 minutes away or 30-minute drive. whatever. And it's like, I can't do that. And it's like, I have another teenager, I have other kids, family, and it's like, you guys do not take under consideration all of the dominoes that are going to fall in effect due to this. And it's like, and plus, some of these kids with their therapists have had a nice bond over years. Ripping kids away from their therapist is not good. It's a definite horrible impact for these kids. They are not going to thrive. And it's like, and you guys do not understand this. That's the hardest thing about this. And you guys have not been transparent from the start. You guys send vague emails, condescending emails, and treat us like, we're just there. We do not appreciate that as parents, staff, or community.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nathaniel Hunsaker. I live at 6482 Kipling Street in Arvada, Colorado. Coincidentally, it's on the back side of the Fitzmaurice enrollment and on the front side of Campbell. Doesn't really matter. My topic is the elephant in the room. I prepared. So let's be clear. You worked for the better part of a year on this closure plan. You held who knows how many meetings and exchanged what can only be assumed lots of communications. And finally, late in August, we get to know about this plan. It's an all or nothing vote for our schools. I, for one, after reality sank in, feel betrayed, beyond frustrated that this is not public discussion all along. I'm only speaking for myself, but it cannot appear more cowardly or sneaky. These are not feelings I enjoy having towards anyone, let alone you. Nor do I say that lightly. We are parents, and you've effectively mobilized an army of traumatized parents. The way this has all been directed gives me major suspicion, and it's overall shattered my trust with Jeffco R1 administration. From my short research, it's painfully clear that class sizes are going to swell, and that's like mud in the face of well-known research, like maybe the Tennessee study of class size in the early school grades, also known as Project STAR from 1985. The summary of that study says that in pre-K through third grade classrooms with an average size of 15 students, one teacher and an aide, these kids went on to outperform classes of an average size of 22 in every academic category measured. These kids also went on to join larger classes in later years, middle school, then high school, and then on into the workforce because they followed this study all the way into adulthood, and always they outperform their peers. You have attacked school usage percentages, which I don't care about. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't understand that. What I can see is you are ignoring this point. Both the proposed schools to close and the receiving schools are currently in this kind of sweet spot or pretty close to it, and the math doesn't work for me on this. Taking that thought with common knowledge of higher crime rates and increased behavioral issues in larger school populations, I conclude the plan is only about money and every child's being left behind. So what now? I'm at the disadvantage. I had to have this trauma hit my family with basically zero warning. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I don't educate properly. Now I find myself digging into what Jeffco is up to after you guys basically cheated. You took a massive head start. It's become clear that someone in central administration authorized multiple projects that were not in the 5B flipbook. Oh yeah, remember that. I've been reading and I'm freaking out. And now it's obvious there's like conflicts of interest across all sorts of channels within the FOC, the CAAC, and we the people of Jefferson County, especially those of us who vote and have school children, demand a no vote tonight, along with an immediate performance analysis top to bottom. And after the data comes back, not from the Askelson report, nor from the current auditing firm, we want somebody who is neutral. And if there's recommendations for consolidation, closures, changes, or maybe even law enforcement involvement, we want that done immediately. If you really intend to help our district, its schools, the teachers, and our kids, we need an olive branch. It's time to unite. To agree, there are some dark figures who've stood in the way of progress. The one thing currently lacking, I think, this is me, is you stepping forward for us. Because it seems there's a couple of powers at play here. Represent the people first, not the budget that failed, not the individuals who outright abuse every privilege and policy. Defend my children. With no compromise whatsoever, you make it clear to me that the people who can, those of us who can, we need to leave and we need to go. We're going to stop lining the pockets of the criminals who are sinking this ship. A yes vote's absolutely going to alienate my family and many more, thus effectively shrinking your enrollment, potentially triggering more closures, more exodus. It's blind, it's belligerent, it's an implosion. These raises, the turf fields nobody wanted because my student athlete hates turf. It's dangerous. Thanks for that. West Jeffco Middle School's football complex. A middle school needs a Myers Swim Complex, a natatorium. What is that? These are all behind our back. Like, I don't understand how this happens. And again, I just don't educate myself. But I, Nathaniel James Hunsaker, plea one last time with you to vote no. Help us out.
Thank you. Welcome. If you don't mind just introducing everyone from your group before you get started. Thank you.
My name is Jill Bryant. I am a parent of a Colorado elementary student. I actually have 3 students and 1 former student. I have with me Gail Barron, and Bobby and Melissa Luna. We're all members of the Colorado community. All throughout this process, we have heard that the goal of Jeffco is to create thriving schools, schools that are equitable, schools that meet the needs of all Jefferson County students. I'm being told that the only way to accomplish this is to shut down small, close-knit communities and neighborhood schools that fail to utilize their building to the maximum capacity, thus eliminating all student communities under 220 children. There are 50 proposed preschool sites for the 22-23 school year. Jeffco says enrollment is declining. If enrollment is declining in our schools, why are you replacing the closed preschool sites and adding more? Why does my school have a 56 student waiting list for its preschool program? Our school would currently have space for 2 preschool classrooms. We have enough interest to open another one, thus inserting 50 children into our current enrollment, adding minimum of 2 classes per grade beginning next year. According to the planning, Jeffco doesn't think that the preschool population is declining, especially with universal preschool next year. You're adding sites, and the data presented to your board in April says that the enrollment decline is decreasing. 6,000 students show the decrease from 2019 to 2020. The projected decrease for 2023 to 2026 is 1,085 students. I work in nonprofit accounting. I primarily work with faith-based organizations throughout Denver. And in my work, I work with large organizations that run $5 to $10 million and have 3,000 to 5,000 people. I also work with organizations that have $300,000 and they serve 25 to 100 people. The members of these organizations are willing to do whatever it takes to create the opportunities to meet the people that they want to serve. Both of these organizations are successful and are significant because they meet different needs of different people in different ways, and they accomplish the same goals. This is not unlike our schools. People choose what suits them. They need options. The responsibility of the school board, your responsibility, is to create diverse education requirements that will meet the independent needs of all of our students. You are eliminating 78% of small schools. You are disregarding your promise to ensure thriving schools and extraordinary student experiences across our district. By the year 23-24, out of 63 total Jeffco elementary schools, 16 will be under 300 students. Let's hope for students who don't thrive in a 450 student elementary school that these students can access these small schools. Most of these consolidations take 2 schools under 250 students and bring them together. It's a merger of equal proportions. My school of 195 students is getting swallowed by a student body of 474. This will bring the student population to over 600 if 64% of our students move. This means that my children, who I have deliberately placed in a small school based on their emotional and cognitive abilities, will be in a school the size of Addenbrooke, which has 9 grade levels. My student-to-educator ratio is 1 in 13. You're moving me to 1 in 17. That's a four more children to every adult. I have 4 children. That's a lot. Our new proposed school has listed a capacity of 515 students. I know they have a whole new wing and 5 empty classrooms. 2 are designated for preschool. Our current preschool program is full. Where are you going to put my children? Our communities keep hearing that you will address our building and asset future in January. Our neighbors and our homeowners and our shareholders just get to wait and see. Allendale has been closed for 2.5 years. What have you done with the building? Is Jeffco prepared to deal with 16 vacant properties? What about our sports associations and our community organizations that utilize our properties? What will our kids be left with when we demolish the sports fields and eliminate the opportunity for our children to pursue their extracurricular activities? The final slide of the presentation on August 25th said that there will be no more elementary school closure proposals. I know you have Phase B coming up. The annual savings for this consolidation is $8 to $12 million. The projected deficit reserves that I heard, which is different than what everybody else heard, is $28 million. I can't find that number anywhere, but if it's true, you still have a $16 to $20 million problem. How are you going to keep your promise and find $20 million more dollars? Clearly, there is overhaul and changes that are necessary for the school district to thrive. I've heard that Jeffco doesn't have an enrollment problem, it has a marketing problem. What if we actually attempted to attract the students in our communities who are choicing out? What would happen if you capped choice enrollment? Especially at our larger schools, which legally you can do based on their capacity, and encourage our kids back to their communities. You said these consolidations have nothing to do with performance, but you are building on to big schools to make them bigger. And you're allowing more children to go to those schools. You cancel our capital improvements, and you wonder why we can't increase enrollment, which we did this year. I know you've heard a lot about our IB program at Colorado, and I know that you've already heard about the trifecta that we have created in our articulation area, and I also know that you are well aware it will be impossible to create a replacement for 5 years. There is nothing wrong with tabling this. If you vote yes, we cannot go back. If you vote no, and we spend a little bit of time gathering some accurate data, invoking the talents and wisdom from our Jeffco community, our parents, our business members, and our staff, what else could we come up with? Ms. Dorland's letter to our community said, to be a thriving district where all students achieve their biggest dreams, we must build on our many bright spots and confront challenges through the lens of opportunity. You cannot build on bright spots when you are eliminating them. There's nothing unreasonable about accessing an elementary school that has under 300 students. This should be an obligation placed on our school board. This proposal is hasty, it's under-researched, and the data being presented is contradictory and inaccurate. This is irresponsible. What you are saying in consolidation proposals does not match what you are saying for future planning opportunities. Rushing this has such an enormous impact on our schools. Are you confident there are no other options? You asked the district for a plan in May, supposedly, and they delivered in August. 3 months. And they came back with one option, one choice. It took Elon Musk 6 months to buy Twitter, and he backed out once. Are you sure they explored all the solutions, or did they just pull low-hanging fruit to deliver in a timely manner? You could find options that would attempt to address more than half of our deficit problem. Your vote tonight impacts 2,200 students, nearly 500 staff, and over 4,000 family members just on the closure side of the schools. Today, you are also making a monumental decision for the future of Jeffco Public Schools. Perhaps this or a similar proposal is the right course of action, but please allow for an appropriate amount of time for data collection, for strategic ideas, and for planning. Please consider the impact of having accessibility to unique learning environments like the GT program and IB and classical instruction and our special education center-based needs programming. These are choices that our students need. Please request a thorough and responsible action plan, a plan that has more than one option. Please vote no on this resolution.
Thank you.
My name is Molly Crampton. I live at 1665 Robb Street in Lakewood. My children go to Vivian Elementary. And I'm here to ask you to vote no tonight. From before its outset, this proposal has been a failure. You failed our children when you snuck pay raises for central administration into the negotiations for teacher pay to the tune of $7.5 million. Nearly the amount that these proposed school closures will save the district. Enrollment is down. Nothing has been done to try to solve that problem. Make the district more desirable or promote the amazing programs that might attract more students to our district. That's a failure. Nearly 40% of students are unable to pass basic ELA literacy tests, and 60% are failing basic math standards. But you think that deserves a raise? Central administration has been failing our students. Why are you rewarding them with raises on the backs of our children? You failed us and our children when you decided not to include the communities that you are affecting in this proposal. You've known about this for months before it was made public, and there was no outreach made to the community to get input about how these closures might look. Instead, you were secretive. You structured the proposal in such a way that it prevented community engagement. You bullied us for speaking out and blamed us for not cooperating when you refused to answer our questions at events that you called community conversations, but were anything but. You failed us when you lashed out at members of our community who dared to give you data about how school closures like this affect the most disadvantaged kids in our community. You failed us when you refused to listen to anyone who wouldn't kowtow to you. You're failing our kids by taking away curricula that can help them excel in a world that doesn't want them to. You failed when you decided to close the one school working at closing achievement gaps. You failed us when you didn't show up for the FCB committee meetings reporting sessions. You told us that those committees were to keep the district accountable to parents who did work with you on what we wanted to see in our new schools. How are we supposed to trust that you will even read those reports when no one from the district showed up? In your most recent study session, the majority of you admitted that you made mistakes, but oh well. You're talking about the most vulnerable age groups in your district. You're leaving giant question marks in your wake, but oh well. That's not good enough. You'll do better in the next round of school closures. That's not good enough. How are we supposed to trust you with the most important people in our lives? If it was at all feasible for me to leave the district, I would absolutely run screaming. Maybe birth rates don't have anything to do with declining enrollment. Maybe it's the consistent failures of this district to serve its children. How are we supposed to trust you when you continue to fail and fail and fail? This process has made me lose my faith in this district and my faith in every one of you. Stephanie, I feel personally betrayed by you. I voted for you because you said you wanted to fight to keep schools open, but I guess children only matter when they're yours. Schools only matter when they're in your neighborhood and affect your property values. And I'm asking you now to recuse yourself from this vote. You have a history of fighting against Vivian, of leveraging your privilege against us, and you continue to do it with even more advantages on your side and the ability to shut us out of the conversation entirely. Despite the fact that Vivian has a larger campus, better facilities, and is in a safer, more accessible location, you continue to make sure you save your school. That is unethical, egregious, and if you have a shred of decency, you will step down from this vote. Additionally, if the rest of you vote yes, I will be running for this board, and I have the support of the Wheat Ridge Coalition and the displaced parents of Vivian behind me. I will not go along to get along, and I will be a voice for the impoverished, the disabled, the children of color that this board and this district continue to oppress. They deserve a voice, and I will make sure they get one.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alana Ritchie, and I've been a longtime resident of Wheat Ridge. I live at 3905 Zephyr Drive, right near Wilmore Davis. I'm here again, ladies, to address you, and to be honest, I've now gotten to the point where I have lost all trust. Excuse me. After spending 2 months looking at this proposal, wrapping my head around the numbers, trying to understand what's proposed, working with my community, I am now angry. The district has been lying to us for years. The teachers have been lied to. The hardworking, dedicated staff has been lied to. Parents and families have been lied to and completely left out of the conversation. The school budget has been mismanaged for over a decade. Mismanaged funds, wasteful capital funding, inflation of administration positions. I've already spoken to many of you this past week, and they were great conversations. But talking is not enough. You all know this proposal is rubbish. It is hastily made with flawed, inaccurate, and old data, lack of insight into Jeffco's history, and thrown together as an equitable solution. Equitable, that's laughable. All of you ladies know this proposal targeted marginalized students, and you know this proposal will only make things worse for them. I asked each one of you that I spoke to, what did the school district do to help save money in the budget ahead of this proposal? Answer, nothing. What did the school district do to encourage enrollment back into our neighborhood public schools and away from charter schools? Nothing. Did the district do any studies on the expansion of preschool programs linked to increased enrollment in that public school? Or did the district invest in more preschool programs in hopes of increased enrollment into our district for next year? No. Did the district go through rounds of pay cuts or furloughs at the administration level or make other district cuts to help save money ahead of this proposal? No. In fact, central administration got pay raises of approximately $7 million this year. I asked my community, do you know how much this school proposal saves this district? An estimated $7 to $8 million. Oh, what a coincidence. To the respectable ladies of this school board, I implore you to do your job and serve your constituents. Stop letting this school district steamroll you into a vote that throws our children under the bus first. It's your responsibility to hold this district's feet to the fire and protect our children that should not be held accountable for the mistakes of this district. You were elected to serve your community, not to dictate to it, and certainly not to damage it. The only hope to save face and not let enrollment plummet next year, which it will if this proposal goes through, is to vote no and make the district do internal cuts first to administration, wasteful spending, and a pay cut to the superintendent's office. The school lunch proposal passed, so we have breathing room to make these other cuts first before closing our valued neighborhood schools. If you really care about our kids, make the district accountable for themselves, instead of sacrificing our children's well-being and their mental health. Then maybe we can close less schools in a more equitable manner. So please vote no. No more lies, no more gaslighting, no more distrust. You ladies have the power to turn this around. It's time to serve us, your community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members, for giving us the opportunity to speak today. My name is Debbie Gail Mitchell. I am a parent of a 3rd and 5th grader at Vivian Elementary. I'm speaking today to not only oppose the current school closure recommendation, but also to express my profound disappointment by your actions over the last 2 months. It's truly been heartbreaking. I hope you all recognize the position of power and privilege that you have as members of the school board. You are making decisions that will dramatically affect the course of our children's lives, and I think you understand that. What I am asking you is that when you are in a position of power and privilege, that you spend that power and privilege with a lens focused on anti-racism and lifting up children who are the most vulnerable. Many of you have spoken about the current inequities in Jeffco. I wholeheartedly agree. As a parent at Vivian Elementary since 2017, I'm fully aware that my children do not have the same access to different programming that's at places like Stover and Prospect Valley. I'm fully aware. The school choice system, coupled with our inability to fund schools in Colorado due to Tabor, results in concentrations of wealth and privilege. And in Wheat Ridge specifically, we dramatically see concentrations of wealth and privilege at schools like Prospect Valley that's overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly wealthy. While I agree that change is needed and possible consolidations may be needed, I'm disturbed that you have put forward a proposal that if you are a student who's receiving free and reduced lunch, you're 3 times more likely to be at a school that is proposed to close. And if you are not white, you're 2 times more likely to be at a school that is not closing. You cannot fix a racist and classist system with a racist and classist proposal. Sorry, I lost my place. That is not equity. In fact, I would argue that that is the opposite of equity, when you're not putting those resources and thinking about a consolidation that will not impact and harm our most vulnerable communities. Over the last 2 months, I have learned that you never had any equity experts look over this proposal. You never had anyone that was an expert in anti-racism and equity give you advice on how an equitable and ethical consolidation may look. What I'm asking is that you vote no on this consolidation and revisit it. Please come up with a new consolidation proposal that does not disproportionately impact our most vulnerable communities. And if consolidations must happen, please consolidate schools with similar demographics. My students are at Vivian Elementary, which is predominantly not white, and they're now going to be put into a school that is predominantly white and wealthy. This is not an ethical consolidation. Please vote no and come up with a consolidation that is ethical and actually equitable. And please get an equity expert to review it and give you guys feedback so that we can make sure that we're not harming our disproportionately harming our most vulnerable communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nathan Kipling in the Vivian area. And I don't think I can say anything better than what's already been said, other than to add my voice in asking that you vote no for this proposal. In particular, I want to speak to the racism. that's involved here. I'm disappointed that the November report from the board did not address equity or the inequality that's presented here in any sort of manner. I think I saw the word equity once mentioned. And that's disappointing to me because I went to the meetings all through October and participated, and I heard people of color voice their opinion that this inequity in this proposal is unsatisfactory, and even went so far as to present complaints to the ACLU. And there was no effort made in this most recent report to describe that from people of color, and there was no effort made to explain why. Why can't we expect, as members of the community, that decisions that are made would be that racism or that race equality and equity would be considered in the decision-making process? This was not addressed in these reports, and so we're left to assume that the board doesn't have a good response or they don't care. If there's not a response at all, what are we to assume? This is a racist proposal for two reasons. One is that enrollment numbers are absolutely affected by racism. I can share an example in my own life. A few weeks ago when I had a conversation with a colleague discussing schools that our kids go to, and hearing their disapproval about going to a certain school and asking, what do you not like about that school? And the one word that's given is that that school is diverse. That's from a colleague of mine at my own workplace. It's absolute, these enrollment numbers are absolutely affected by racism. So to choose to use these enrollment numbers to make a decision about school closure is using the racism that is present in the community to confirm to them that those schools are not worthy of keeping open and that they should be closed. The second way is that the end result, look at the end result. The end result comes up with the proposal where people of color are affected in a 2-to-1 ratio. What I'm asking is to reconsider this proposal such that it affects students in a 1-to-1 ratio. And this can be done by either acknowledging the racism in the enrollment numbers and choosing to use them, but giving exceptions for school closures that would balance out the ratio, or it can be done by throwing out the enrollment numbers and using a different number to make a decision about school closure. And if you need any recommendations for other numbers to look at for recommendations for school closure, look no further than 2017 Jefferson County School District that made recommendations for school closures that were not based on enrollment numbers. I think I would ask that we need a leader that is strong enough to make not just the right decision to close schools, but the right decision to close the right schools. Please vote no.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Valerie Nosler Beck, and I live at 4325 Everett Street, Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and I'm here to speak about this school closure vote tonight. I am a parent to 2 kids that attend Wilmore Davis as first and third graders. They love it, and so do I. And I want to thank the school board for finding time to meet with me and discuss this decision tonight to close 16 Jeffco schools. You all have a hard job that impacts many, and you are not paid for the work and time you put into this. Your job has been a tough one throughout the pandemic, and you bear huge responsibility. I know each of you is evaluating every angle of tonight's vote. I also fully understand that we probably are going to be closing 16 schools after tonight's vote. Decades of Jeffco Schools leadership got us into this mess. Decades. Poor planning and spending from administrations gone by and past school boards poor oversight got us here. I think we can all agree on that. I was angry and now sad and grief-stricken, and for those of you who met with me know I'm a crier, so I'm going to do that. To lose a school I moved to a neighborhood for. The same school my father and my family members attended in the early 60s, the same school my aunt's student taught at, the same school my kids learned to read, write, participate in the school veterans program, or just really learn to love a teacher. I'm so sad. Wilmer Davis is kind of everything in my house. I'm sharing that because I just need this school district to know that the handling of the public outreach and community engagement throughout this process and before the public process began has been pitiful. I have been told by some school board members that my advocating for my school or my community is selfish and unequitable. I believe in democracy. I believe in representative government, and your theory that advocating for one school over another or one community over the other is inequitable is all wrong. It is up to you to listen to us and process what we say to you and not write us off just because the way the staff has calculated data shows my family's school is not thriving in their definition. The staff can come up with that, but don't accuse my community or me of othering or exclusion because of your actions. You all decided to close 16 at once and vote on 16 with this vote. That is on you, not me or my community of Wheat Ridge. This process has been pitiful, as I said before. I hope tonight you vote no. But if you do vote yes, I hope you call out what was wrong with this so-called community engagement process that was set up to placate the impacted families and educators. I will always work towards a better future at my kids' school and in my community, always. It's my kids. It's all our kids. So the outcome on the other side of this, I will help. But we need to learn to trust this district, and we don't right now. This process has been riddled with issues from the beginning. I hope that if there are yes votes tonight, some of the huge missteps will be called out and we can begin to address them. As for now, I close with this. And now I'm really going to cry. Thank you so much to Janice Fisher at Wilmar Davis, our principal. She tried so darn hard to increase enrollment at our school. On day one, I wish we could have pulled it off. Also, to all the incredible educators and staff at Wilmar, Talia, Coco, Sam, and I love you from the bottom of our heart. We have been through so much together. And to the other parents and families at Wilmore and in Wheat Ridge, we will get through this together. Save our community, save our schools.
Thank you.
Well, I'm the only one not talking about school closures. So I asked to be at the end so I wouldn't split that up because that's so important. My name is Kathy Roboff. I'm an Arvada resident, and I'm here tonight to speak to you about the Return to Sport protocol. Good evening, and thanks for your time. The district's Return to Sport protocol was proposed to Jeffco by Panorama Orthopedics back in 2020. It requires every high school athlete, after full recovery from a COVID diagnosis and with a signed release to return to athletics from their own medical doctor, to then progress through 5 different phases of physical activity with cardiac and respiratory testing performed by the Panorama athletic trainers at the high schools, with each test at least 24 hours apart. I've been in communication with the district regarding this protocol since April of 2021. There were and still are concerns with student data privacy, equity access among schools, and the integrity of the program that have not been corrected, including making details about the program available on the district website. I've also done extensive research, and although Jeffco staff continues to say surrounding districts are doing this, I have not found any. Not Cherry Creek, Aurora, BVSD, Littleton, St. Vrain Valley, 27J, Adams 12, Douglas County, not even elite sports programs at Valor in Kent, Denver. The AAP recommends mild cases of COVID experienced by most teens can simply be cleared with a phone call or email with your PCP. It's reasonable to allow our students' own doctors through the district's COVID waivers to clear the athletes to play. With the changes to COVID public health county guidance and no more contact tracing, testing, and quarantine mandates, we were hopeful the district would end the protocol this school year. It simply no longer makes sense. Even the NCAA and NFL seem to have dropped their additional COVID screening requirements. In my conversation with Jeffco's ED for Athletics a month ago, I was told he and Superintendent Dorland fully supported the end of the program. 3 weeks later, this is the district answer, and I quote, "I have been in contact with staff at Panorama several times in the past week, and they have continued to indicate they are reviewing data, best practices from around the country, and having conversations with other local medical and training providers in the area, and that they will have an update for me very soon." End quote. What data does Panorama continue to review that is so different from surrounding different districts, the NCAA, or even the NFL? Why is Panorama getting to be the sole decision maker on ending this program? Why can't district leadership tell Panorama the program is flawed and it's no longer required in Jeffco Public Schools? I must ask, are there grants or contracts linked to the continuation of this program on the backs of our student athletes? The district made money on the mandatory COVID testing of student athletes last year. Is this the same? Our Jeffco students have been disrupted long enough. We had undue burdens on unvaccinated athletes for weekly testing. We masked athletes under helmets and outside over mouth guards. We had missed sports seasons and then missed playoff games because there weren't enough trainer office hours. We had students in training. Yes, pure high school students were performing these tests, clearing other students through protocols because athletic trainers were unavailable. A trainer can even overrule medical doctors' recommendations and keep athletes out of their sport. The pandemic is over. We need to be able to move on and treat this like mono, the flu, or other illnesses affecting our athletic teams each year. We didn't like it when JCPH was forcing masks and testing mandates on our students when neighboring districts weren't. Why are we still the only ones doing this to our student athletes now? Winter sports season starts on Monday. We don't need shortened protocols. We need to end this program effective immediately. We know better. Let's do better. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you all very much. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. As a reminder to our audience, the consent agenda does not include regional opportunities for thriving schools, that item, which is the last item on our agenda for the evening. The Jeffco Board of Education is proud to issue proclamations that honor our schools and community organizations and that highlight issues aligned with our district's mission, vision, values, and strategic plan. This month, the board will vote on the adoption of proclamations in recognition of Veterans Day, National Substitute Teacher Day, National Education Support Professionals Day, and Hunger and Homelessness Awareness as part of our consent agenda. All of those proclamations are available to be read on the district's website. So items 3.01 through 3.12 are presented in board docs as a proposed consent agenda item. Do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as posted in board docs.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, it has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is to take action on the recommendations regarding. Oh my gosh. Roll call, please, Ms. Lang.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Dr. Varda.
Yes. My apologies. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is to take action on the recommendations regarding regional opportunities for thriving schools. This is a major step in a process that we began in April when the board asked the superintendent to develop a multi-phase consolidation plan that would ensure sustainable and thriving schools in the face of declining enrollment. On June 2nd, we adopted revisions to policies FCB and FCBR to guide that process. And on August 25th, the superintendent presented recommendations. Over the last 10 weeks, we've engaged in listening through meetings and public hearings regarding those recommendations. On November 4th, district staff uploaded a proposed resolution for a vote of the board. After reviewing that draft, I requested additional language in response to feedback and concerns we heard from stakeholders at public meetings and hearings. The resolution was updated and uploaded to board docs on November 7th, and if approved, it provides clear direction to the superintendent to take the steps necessary to ensure that the staff, students, and families of the affected schools are assisted in transitioning to other schools and other positions. It also provides clear direction on process elements for phase 2 of the plan and the decision-making process related to use of under or unutilized district buildings. The board is committed to those priorities, whether the current recommendation is approved or not. The revised resolution can be viewed in board docs, and those items are section 3, letters A through the end, I. Before we move forward to a vote and a reading of the resolution, I'd like to turn it over to the superintendent for some comments. Superintendent Dorland.
Thank you, President Schooley. Tonight is an important and incredibly difficult night for Jeffco Public Schools. As your superintendent, who is also an educator at heart, having been an elementary school teacher, instructional coach, assistant principal, and principal, I know how special a school is to everyone who is part of that school community. I have personally run through the cycle of grief, denial, anger, sadness, and acceptance, and I have been present in gyms, cafeterias, and libraries with our impacted school communities, as they too have gone through these emotions and struggled with the district's recommendation. I'd like to thank the employees, families, and community members from the impacted schools who attended the community meetings and/or the public comment sessions for each school. You took the time and you had the courage to offer feedback about this recommendation, how it will impact you and our students, and what you need from the district to support your family if the recommendation is approved. And so many of you, even amidst a lot of the intense emotion, shared this feedback in an honest and respectful manner. And I thank you for that. Everyone in the impacted schools should be proud of the commitment that they bring every day as families, educators, students, and community members. These recommendations are not a reflection of the amazing people in our organization or community. The recommendation is a reflection of Jeffco's changing demographics with fewer school-aged children and the unfortunate but imperative need for us to address the shifting enrollment trends that are impacting not only Jeffco, but many districts across our state and nation. I regret this recommendation is needed at this time, and I sincerely apologize to the communities who are impacted and grieving. There's another group in the room tonight for whom I'd like to express deep appreciation. Principals from the schools recommended for closure and the newly identified boundary schools are here this evening sitting with our district leadership team. Your leadership has been instrumental as we've worked to support our communities through this difficult recommendation, and I very much appreciate the partnership you've had with our district leadership team. You have not only been sense makers for your staff, students, and families, but you've also been sense makers for our district team as we have worked to lead this effort in as supportive a way as possible. And I know how this impacts you all personally, given how much you love the schools that you lead. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment to Jeffco. And now I'd like to speak directly to our Board of Education. First, thank you for having the courage to ask for a comprehensive plan to address our shifting enrollment trends. As you know, during the last 2 years, our board has experienced the very difficult challenge of emergency closures in the spring, leaving the families of Allendale and Fitzmaurice and their students at a disadvantage in the enrollment process and employees behind in the staffing process. I am grateful for your vision and courage in considering a more comprehensive and proactive plan to address our shifting enrollment with clear and equally applied criteria. Second, thank you for setting an expectation that we apply lessons learned from our district's past in relation to school consolidations. I appreciate that I'm a new superintendent to Jeffco and that you are a fairly new board. With leadership change, there is a risk that we do not learn from the past, but you set an expectation for us to be reflective. Third, thank you for the time you have spent visiting our schools, seeking to understand, asking me difficult questions, and expecting sufficient answers, listening to our school communities and being incredibly reflective as you headed into this evening. I am grateful for your patience, presence, compassion, and commitment during this process. I know from many hours of conversation with each and every one of you that this is an especially difficult decision for you. You all care deeply about our students, families, and staff, and I know you take this decision very seriously. Finally, thank you for constantly asking difficult questions, identifying concerns and issues that arise from our community, considering with me solutions, and ultimately setting high expectations for me and my team. Please know that you have my sincere gratitude for your leadership, and I respect you all as thoughtful decision makers in tonight's difficult vote.
Thank you, Superintendent Derlin. Before we get to the motion on the resolution, I'm going to ask Director Reed, are you good to go? To read the resolution in its entirety so that everyone understands what is part of the resolution, that then there'll be a motion for us to discuss. Thank you, Director Reed.
Resolution, Board of Education decision on district recommendation, regional opportunities for thriving schools. Whereas, in its adopted end statements, the Board of Education of Jefferson County School District R1, Jeffco Public Schools, set forth the belief that Jeffco students need and deserve robust academic, enrichment, and social-emotional programs that challenge them to grow and that prepare them for college, for careers, and for community life. The board prioritizes thriving educational experiences for students as its primary focus. The board achieves this commitment through system-wide accountability to make budget and policy decisions that are aligned with the board's ends. And whereas the population of school-aged children in Jefferson County has steadily declined, and although the district has capacity to serve approximately 96,000 students in district-managed student schools, it currently serves approximately 69,000, with approximately 40% of that excess capacity existing at the elementary level. And whereas the Jeffco Board of Education recognizes that persistent declining enrollment necessitates the closure and consolidation of district-managed schools to ensure exceptional educational experiences for students and to effectively steward public funds to meet district priorities. And whereas on April 7th, 2022, after the emergency spring closure of 2 elementary schools in 2 consecutive years, the Jeffco Board of Education voted unanimously to direct the superintendent to prepare a multi-phase consolidation plan to ensure thriving schools and extraordinary student experiences across the district. And whereas, as of May 2022, May 2022, 49 of the district's elementary schools had student populations of under 250 pupils and/or building utilization of 60% or less, resulting in significant inequities in the per-pupil funding provided to district elementary schools. And whereas on August 25th, 2022, district staff recommended the closure of 16 elementary schools in 12 articulation areas. That recommendation may be found in a link if you look at this resolution on the website. The recommendations include the designation of a proposed receiving school or schools for the neighborhood students attending any school designated for closure, and also specified new locations for affected center-based special education programs. And whereas the Jeffco Board of Education values the perspectives and lived experiences of community members and families and listens to those community priorities to inform board decision-making, and whereas the Jeffco Board of Education engaged in listening sessions through 32 school-based community conversations and heard 16 hours of public comment specific to the 16 schools identified for closure as part of regional opportunities for thriving schools. And whereas the Jeffco Board of Education recognizes the impacts of school closures and consolidations on communities, while also recognizing the resource barriers to providing thriving educational experiences for all Jeffco students. And whereas it is in the best interests of the district students and families to have robustly and equitably resourced school programs through the consolidation of smaller elementary schools to create more sustainable elementary schools. Be it therefore resolved by the Board of Education of Jefferson County District R1 that 1. The board will approve and adopt the recommendations of August 25th, 2022 as follows. Effective July 1st, 2023, Emory Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Lasley Elementary School. Sorry, that was A. B. Effective July 1st, 2023, Peck Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Seacrest Elementary School. C. Effective July 1st, 2023, Thompson Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Swanson Elementary School. D. Effective July 1st, 2023, Campbell Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of the current Fremont Elementary School attendance area north of West 64th Avenue, and the current Campbell Elementary School attendance area with that of the current Vanderhoof Elementary School boundary of West 64th Avenue. E. Effective July 1st, 2023, Piper Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Kendallview Elementary School. F. Effective July 1st, 2023, Colorado Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Powderhorn Elementary School. G. Effective July 1st, 2023, Green Mountain Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Foothills Elementary School. H. Effective July 1st, 2023, Moleholm Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Lumberg Elementary School. I. Effective July 1st, 2023, Glennon Heights Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Belmar Elementary School. J. Effective July 1st, 2023, Parr Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Little Elementary School. K. Effective July 1st, 2023, Sheridan Green Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Ryan Elementary School. L. Effective July 1st, 2023, Witt Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Lucas Elementary School. M. Effective July 1st, 2023, New Classical Academy at Vivian will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Stober Elementary School. N. Effective July 1st, 2023, Wilmore Davis Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Stevens Elementary School. O. Effective July 1st, 2023, Color Strand Elementary School will close and combine its existing attendance area with that of Prospect Valley Elementary School. P, effective July 1st, 2023, the former Fitzmaurice Elementary School attendance area will be combined with that of Lawrence Elementary School. Q, effective July 1st, 2023, the former Allendale Elementary School attendance area will be combined with that of Vanderhoof Elementary School. And R, effective July 1st, 2024, Bergen Meadow K2 will close, and the grade configuration of Bergen Valley will be converted to a PK5. 2. The superintendent and her staff are to adjust boundary maps and choice attendance materials to align with the closures and consolidations referenced there above. 3. The superintendent and her staff have clear direction from the board to take the steps necessary to ensure that the staff, students, and families in the affected schools are assisted in transitioning to other schools and other positions in accordance with district policy, negotiated agreements, state laws, and as follows. A, present to the board a comprehensive transition plan, including all necessary programmatic and staff supports for Jeffco students included in center-based special education programs and other specialty programs that will be relocated as a result of school closure. B, provide to the board an evidence-based plan for Title I and at-risk funding allocation in support of FRL-eligible students across the district. C, maintain class sizes within the grade parameters outlined in the collective bargaining agreement with the Jefferson County Educators Association. D, identify preschool options based on an articulated strategy for district-wide preschool as a part of students' PK-12 educational experience. E, determine transportation needs and implement adjustments as needed to ensure all eligible students have access to bus routes as required by school or district boundary changes and board policy. Additionally, work with municipal leaders to identify areas of opportunity for increased safety mitigation around district-managed school sites. F, develop and implement a process for engagement with FCB committee members and school membership representing all impacted elementary schools to identify process changes and improvements for any future closures and consolidations of schools. G, provide the board a plan to assist parents and guardians of affected students with priority enrollment options and to help identify and secure ongoing student and family support services, including translation services as needed. H, engage with a diverse group of stakeholders, including community members, families, students, elected officials, municipal representatives, businesses, and nonprofits to gather inputs on strategies and funding priorities to strengthen pathways PK through 12. And I, commit to an engagement process that includes community partners, area residents, elected officials, municipal representatives, businesses, and nonprofits that provides recommendations to the board regarding to the dispositions of or underutilized buildings that are property of Jeffco Public Schools. Adopted this 10th day of November, 2022.
Thank you, Director Reed. Do I have a motion regarding the resolution on the staff recommendation for regional opportunities for thriving schools?
I move to adopt the revised resolution approving the staff recommendations for regional opportunities for thriving schools as posted in board docs.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Board members, discussion. Is there a board member who would like to start? Director Miller.
I know that all of us on this board may not always agree on everything. But I think all of us can agree that none of us ran to serve our community and then face this challenge before us. I also want to thank all of you who took the time to meet with me, to have a Zoom meeting, to have coffee, to take the time to talk with me about your concerns, as well as the community meetings where we were able to spend time with you as well and hear your voices. When we are faced with a crisis, people need to hear two things: truth and hope. Let's start with some painful truths about the mess in which we find ourselves.
Jeffco is in the middle of a rapidly worsening financial crisis, with continued enrollment declines reducing revenue and COVID federal aid that ends in 2024. And even as our enrollment was declining, according to JCEA's presentation to the board just last spring, we continued to increase our staffing levels. Further, despite falling revenue, our costs are significantly higher. And while every organization wants to compensate their employees fairly, the reality is that depending on the circumstances, not all can increase pay without triggering a financial crisis. When this board approved a $67 million increase in employment compensation this year that will continue to increase in future budget cycles, we brought our salaries in line with our surrounding communities, but at a cost that tonight we have to face. This year, the district is projected to run a $34 million deficit in our general fund, and an overall deficit spend across all funds is more than $40 million. The general fund deficit spend alone is projected to total $133 million over the next 3 years if we do nothing. When a district begins to draw on reserves, Colorado state law requires school districts to prepare a plan to eliminate their budget deficit. Hope is not a plan. Therefore, we must develop a comprehensive plan to not only move away from the deficit spend, but build back to a stronger fiscal position. Closing schools is just one part of that plan, but that alone won't come close to closing a $40 million gap. Staff reduction to serve a smaller student population will almost certainly be needed. So how did we get here? For the past decade, Jeffco management and boards have kept small schools open by cutting their arts, music, and phys ed classes, and forcing our teachers to teach multiple grades in the same classroom with stretched resources. We also moved vulnerable populations into smaller schools to help improve enrollment numbers without a thoughtful pathway for where these children would be served after they left elementary school. When Jeffco did acknowledge the enrollment challenge, we acted without forethought. One example is the closing of Pleasant View in 2017. When the board closed that Title I school, the district sent the children to Sheldon and Welchester, non-Title I schools. The Title I supports did not follow the children, and that impacted those children in the communities that welcomed them into the fold. That is one of the lessons we learned. That same year, we tried to address the declining utilization of our middle schools by moving our 6th graders to middle school for the 18-19 school year. We hoped that we would shore up our elementary schools with preschool students. This was not realized. Further, during that time, Jeffco continued to add staff and increase compensation while we experienced declining academic results and falling student enrollment in our district-run neighborhood schools. As many of you are now aware, our neighborhood schools have lost over 11,000 students. Our predecessors refused to deal with this growing crisis and kept kicking the can down the road. And as I said in August, we have now run out of road. It has thus fallen upon this management team and this board to finally act with a long overdue sense of urgency to resolve the many challenges facing the district so that we may better serve our children. Unfortunately, the need for us to act urgently has made many people angry, as we heard this evening, and it has reduced their trust in Jeffco and its leaders. Tonight's vote won't solve the crisis we face, but it is necessary and unavoidable part of the solution. We still must help many children transition to new schools, some of which will be using different curriculum. We must manage the transition of critical special education and other programs to new schools. To close our budget deficit, we must make hard decisions about staff changes and what to do with our 16 closed schools. And starting in January, we must begin to look beyond this year and look to a 3 to 5 year plan that incorporates secondary schools, pathways in our articulation areas, and management of our fixed assets. Above all, we must find the money we need to pay for initiatives to recover our children's COVID learning losses and it substantially improved their academic outcomes. Because that is why this district exists, to educate our children. In an affluent, educated suburb like Jeffco, having 70% of our sixth graders fail to meet state proficiency standards in math is totally unacceptable. And it's setting them up to fail in the 21st century economy. We owe them a better future than that. So where is the hope? Turning around a $1.4 billion organization like Jeffco is an immense challenge. And our vote tonight is just one of the many steps we will have to take in this long, hard process. But now that many more people in our county, our state, and indeed our nation understand the breadth and depth of the multiple crises we are facing, they're going to be paying much closer attention to how we respond. And that's going to be responding to the tough questions about how we're spending our $1 billion a year that our taxpayers have trusted us to use wisely. The public is going to demand improvements in our process for deciding on school closures. They want it done with them, not to them. The public is going to demand to be fully involved in deciding what to do with the closed schools in their neighborhoods, schools that the district has spent millions of bond money upgrading. The public is going to demand more urgency from Jeffco in substantially improving our children's academic results and reversing the decline in district enrollment and revenue we need to stabilize. The public is going to demand we do better for our most vulnerable students, our children of color that are impacted by these proposed closures. The reality is that we as a board can no longer turn our backs on these students and provide them with less than the ideal learning experiences. We as a board must have the courage to say no more. All children deserve better. Above all, my reason to be hopeful tonight is that the citizens of Jefferson County are never going to forget that thriving schools aren't an end in of themselves. They are a means to achieve our fundamental purpose, graduating academically proficient young adults who will thrive in the 21st century economy. For more than a decade, we did not stay laser focused on our most important role, ensuring that all Jeffco children have access to high quality and rich academic programming. That is our sole job. I hope we as Jeffco never again lose that focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Miller. Is there another board member that would like to provide some comments? Director Reed.
I've heard a number of times that people believe that the listening sessions and the community meetings were performative. And so I want to clarify first that on August 25th, when this was proposed, we did talk about the fact that really these sessions were not for debating whether or not to close these schools, but rather to discuss how best to make the transition. And I do think that in a number of communities, it was clear that that was putting the cart before the horse, that perhaps we jumped into that too quickly. So I want you to know that I hear that, and yet it's a tough decision that affects so many communities, and there are, as I know you know, a lot of moving pieces to it. I came to appreciate that as I did not as a candidate. I knew that we had an issue. I had no idea the genuine magnitude of it. So understandably, people have turned to advocating for their schools, and I know that sometimes it feels that that wasn't appreciated. It was. It means a great deal that to hear people speak so passionately for their schools. It makes this harder, and that's probably how it should be, honestly. It shouldn't be an easy thing to do. I attended several community conversations in every single one of our public hearings, and I did see and was moved by the passionate caring of our communities for their schools. At every public hearing, I heard compelling reasons that each and every school on the closing list is a valuable part of Jeffco. I wrote copious notes through the hearings because there are so many things about these schools that are on the closing list that are worth preserving. That said, after hearing every school community speak so thoughtfully and so passionately, I cannot imagine choosing one over another. If our job as Board of Education directors were to look out for a single school, I could easily see any one of us advocating for any one of these schools. However, our job is to look out for all of our students collectively. It means that we must take into account whether every one of our schools has the resources it needs to provide all of the fundamental elements of a quality education and beyond. As the board and district delved into this issue together, it was apparent that this is not the case. Some schools have all the resources they need for those fundamental elements. Others do not. I've spent a lot of time over my first year in office visiting schools. I've heard a number of people say you should visit the schools. We visit our schools. It's a big piece of what we do. And in those visits, I have seen firsthand how this plays out. I have heard principals at very small schools worry constantly about enrollment because losing only a few students can mean the difference between having a digital teacher librarian or not, offering full specials or not, having enough social emotional supports for students or not. I never hear this from principals at larger schools. They excitedly tell me about all the wonderful opportunities they offer students. A former principal of a school that closed, who is now the principal of a larger school, told me that once his job was to figure out which important things to take away from kids every year to make his budget work. And now he decides what opportunities to provide. In community conversations and letters, again, which I deeply appreciate, I've been asked to look at this issue as a mom, which was an interesting perspective to be asked for. My own children attended their Jeffco neighborhood elementary school from kindergarten through 6th grade. And I say this because I think some of the things that are generating perhaps the most anxiety are not the detriments that they might be perceived to be. At the time, this school served just under 500 students. And because both the distance and because there were 2 major 4-way plus roads between our house and their school, they rode a bus the entire time. Their neighborhood friends attended the same school and rode the same bus. Parents often gathered at bus stops with the kids, making their own friends along the way. My kids are grown now, and one has a son of his own, but I still count among my friends parents of kids they played with in elementary school. That community still matters. I think it will forever. And I think it's important to understand that community doesn't require a particular number of students or a particular mode of transportation. Community is so much more than that. In the end, though, what I really do is I look at this as a teacher, because that's what I was for 30 years. As a woman who has deeply loved countless kids who weren't mine. One community member said to me, "We know that some kids are going to have to lose in all of this." If I thought regional opportunities for thriving schools would cause kids to lose anything without gaining a great deal in return, I would absolutely vote no. As an educator, which is what I am and will always be to the core of my soul, I cannot leave some kids in under-resourced schools while others get everything they need and more. And when we talk about our students of color and we talk about students who are marginalized, these are very often the students that we are leaving in under-resourced schools. My conscience just can't allow that. I cannot shortchange all of our students at large schools, small schools, and in between by funding thousands of empty seats across the district, which is what we're doing now. It just isn't right. I can't preside every spring over emergency closures that give families no opportunity to enter into the choice system, that offers the staff no opportunity to find another place in the district where they can help kids and do what they do best. It isn't right. I know that for some of our communities, this is a time for grieving, and I respect that. But I also know that, as Director Miller spoke about in terms of hope, there will be plenty for those same communities and the rest of us to celebrate in years to come, because we will have schools across the district where we're not giving more to some and less to others, where we're not spending money on empty seats. We're spending every penny for our students. I appreciate everyone's involvement in this. I appreciate a board that I know has been thoughtful, because I have heard all of you speak in meetings. I have spoken with you one-on-one and had the chance to hear what matters and what your concerns are. I am deeply appreciative for the hundreds of hours, and literally hundreds of hours, that I know that the staff put in to analyzing all of the data and trying their absolute level best to make all of the pieces of this incredibly complicated puzzle come together, and their willingness to say, hey, we're missing a piece here. We need to work on this. We missed a piece there in the past. We need to make sure that we don't miss it this time around. And I am deeply, deeply appreciative of the principals of all of our affected schools, because, as has been stated tonight, this has been a difficult year on top of so many other difficult years. And your professionalism, your dedication, your passion for your students and for your communities has been completely inspiring. And I thank you deeply. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Reed. Dr. Varda.
Okay. When I started my term on this board, we worked pretty hard on a vision and agreed on a vision that every student in this district graduate with the best opportunity for career, civic life, or college. However, I quickly learned that in Jefferson County, that's not always happening. As a mom, I did not see the inequities because I just saw that my kids were doing okay in schools. And as we heard at every meeting, I believe my teachers love our kids. They know them by name, and it feels great. And I know that our principals will do whatever it takes to hold those schools together. Although one principal told me that effectively they are duct taping the schools together to do so. But as a board member, my job is to step back and see through a lens that considers the experience and opportunities for all our kids. So what I saw is that our kids are graduating with wildly different experiences and opportunities. While some kids are getting all the things we can possibly provide, others are not. When we took a view at all the factors that impact the inequities across the district, we could start to see that these disparities start even at kindergarten in our elementary schools and continue forward from there. But it took me some time to learn about this issue, and so through school visits and board work and community engagement, I started to understand more deeply what this problem looks like. So I wanted to share some of those things because it took me some time. All right, as a mom, I remember really clearly at the end of a board meeting last year, a group of teachers and staff from Fitzmorris Elementary came to public comment. And after we listened to their comments, I remember being really confused. I didn't understand then or yet that they were asking us. I am also a crier. Sorry. To consider closing their school. Okay. I actually really couldn't believe it, but it was heartfelt, and it started to paint this desperate situation in a school that simply didn't have the ability to provide the thriving school experience that we had started to imagine as a board. And after many hours of conversations and school visits, and asking lots of questions, we voted for an emergency closure of that school. And I'll admit, I never want to do that again. Students and families have mere months to prepare, and our center kids did not get the transition time they absolutely needed to make such a significant change. That affected me, and I started to see what was happening in our small schools. There were other things that I learned about that helped me think about where we are today. And one was literacy and curricular resources. I learned early on as I started this work, as Superintendent Dorland was pushing for a literacy resource across the district, I learned that our schools did not all have literacy resources. And as a mom, I had no idea. My kids went to school with no literacy resource. I didn't know how that impact would affect our kids and how that disparity impacted small schools versus big schools. Big schools had resources and they could buy literacy programs, and small schools, unless they had a special way to do it, didn't get them, which meant some kids got literacy resources and some didn't. This wildly affects their chances of having the same graduation outcome. And in an environment where learning loss from COVID is real and our math and reading scores need to be improved, this is a resource that I think should be available to not just some of the kids, but all of them. And this year, I am proud that we, as a board, were able to vote for one-time funding to put literacy programs in all of our schools. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. But I don't want this to be one time, and I don't want this disparity to affect kids depending on the size of their school. And finally, in mental health, when I learned that kids in some small schools can only have mental health crises on Mondays, Wednesdays, and every other Fridays, because we're splitting mental health staff across schools, it was really hard to hear. Our kids need mental health services every day of the week. Because crises and challenges don't happen part-time, but in our small schools, kids don't get as many mental health services as their peers, and I fundamentally think this is wrong and warrants a fight for change. So I want to acknowledge some of the things that I've heard from the community meetings and things we are thinking about. I want to hold ourselves in the district accountable as we move forward. Like our families, I'm concerned about transportation. Our kids' safety is my most important concern, and the loss of neighborhood schools within walking distance absolutely breaks my heart. I want what our families want for our kids. And as a district, we have to do our absolute best to help the families with these changes. I am also concerned about our buildings. I know they are hubs of the community and a place of safety and comfort for kids and families, and I want to be sure we honor that legacy of the spaces. I'm concerned about our center programs and how the staff and kids will do with all those transitions. And I think it's important that we absolutely resource and support them all. I am worried and thinking a lot about our teachers and staff, and I want to make sure that they are taken care of as we go forward. And I'm thinking about our non-English speaking families and concerned about how hard it is to navigate a known system, and yet now having to navigate a totally unknown change. I hope that for all our families, we're paying attention to helping these families make decisions and find support to reduce being scared or uncertain about, and rather empowered and comfortable. So some people have suggested that more time would make this all different or better, and I don't agree that more time is the answer. I see a very long and complex process ahead of us. We cannot figure out how to address all these concerns until we know what is next. We cannot plan every next step until we get through this one.
I know that each decision leads to a lot of new decisions and alternatives to consider. And this process is going to take a long time, and our kids deserve that we start now. So I just want to end with saying that for me, I'm not thinking about this decision as a cost savings price tag. I would never consider our children as simply a digit. While we have a lot of work to do to overcome our budget deficit, this is not why I supported and asked for a consolidation strategy. Rather, I think about our kids and their education experiences that they only get once. They deserve the best experiences today, and while this is painful and difficult, I think our kids deserve to know their adults did everything they could to give them the best education possible. And over the last few months, we have absorbed your grief, your anger, and your sadness. And each of us are holding that sacred in this decision. We feel it too.
Thank you, Dr. Varda. Director Parker.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank all the people who've participated in our community conversations and board meetings and have made their voices heard through public comments and emails. This includes parents, staff, community members, grandparents, and most importantly, the brave students who came, spoke at the meetings, and sent us their letters. The decision we're making tonight should not be an ivory tower decision based on charts and graphs and statistics alone. It's critical that we keep front of mind that what we decide will have a significant impact on thousands of students and their families, hundreds of staff members, and the broader communities where our schools are located. I appreciate everyone who has reached out to me. I expect to continue to hear from the community and to be held accountable for my decisions. I also want to thank the district staff for all the time and effort they have put into attending scheduled meetings and making themselves available to school staff, to PTAs, to SACs, to community organizations. I truly believe that they've been responsive and committed to addressing every concern that has been raised. I also want to thank our associations, JCEA, JESPA, JCAA, for working with the district to plan for the transition of so many school employees. Many school districts facing the same problem of declining enrollment have found themselves at odds with teachers and staff. And a special thanks to the principals who are affected the most by these school closings. They care about their students and they care about their staff. I appreciate that our communities feel blindsided by the recommendation to close 16 Jeffco elementary schools. As a new board member, I was shocked to learn that of the huge gap between our district's capacity to serve 96,000 students and the current student enrollment of 69,000. At one of my first school board meetings in January, we heard from parents and staff at Fitzmaurice about the dire situation they found themselves in with less than 100 students. Things escalated quickly from that point, culminating with a decision to close Fitzmaurice at our April board meeting. As a result of that decision, the board revised our school closure policies and directed the superintendent and her staff to give us a detailed description of all Jeffco's District 1 elementary schools by the end of June, and to give the board a recommendation on school closures by August 25th. Because of the lessons learned from previous emergency school closures that came after parents had already open enrolled for the next school year and staff had missed application deadlines for job openings, it was determined that the board needed to make decisions on school closures by November. I've spent many sleepless nights reflecting on the comments I've heard, and I spent many hours planning what I wanted to say tonight. During my school visits as a new school board member, I also saw the significant disparities in staffing and resources across our school. There are several topics that I want to address tonight that have come up over and over in the different meetings we've had. The first one is the budget deficit. I want you to know, as a member who strongly supported the district's contracts with JCEA and JESPA, because I believe, for me, the number one priority in a strong educational system is to attract and retain good staff. So I own that. And that did put us in a hole budget-wise. But that has nothing to do for me in my contemplation of closing and consolidating schools. There's been valid criticism of things that were done in the past. There's a valid point that we spent millions of dollars on some of these buildings that we're going to be closing. But is that a reason to not close the school because we just spent money to build a new playground or something? They're valid criticisms. I respect them, but it's not something that I'm going to be using for my decision tonight. Also, any additional cuts we might be making and we have to make for our budget, as was mentioned by Director Miller, they will not fill a seat in a school. The second area I wanted to address is logistics. There's been a lot of concern about transportation and safety and traffic congestion. These are valid concerns, but they would be true no matter when and where and which schools we would be closing. Another area is the use of our buildings, and I think we need to do some very thoughtful considerations in those. There's been concern that we might just put in another charter school there or something. I'll tell you personally, I would not be in favor of doing that. And I'm personally disappointed that we're not allowed to, it's my understanding that we cannot include any charter schools in our decision making right now, that according to the state law, we handle charter schools differently than our district managed schools. Another area is on the programs that we have, the center programs and specialty programs like dual language, pre-K, and our before and after offerings. This is an area that's very important to me. I expressed it at our last school board meeting. I feel personally that we've used our programs as fillers, as ways to bump up enrollment in different schools, and I think that's a total disservice to that population. We should not be just putting them wherever there's some space. We should be much more thoughtful to that. I have a daughter who's a SPED teacher. I have another daughter who is a second grade teacher in a school that has an ASD program. I know what happens with these programs if you don't have the resources to support them. It's a disservice, and I want to address this in a long-term fashion, and I have made that very clear that where our programs go and where and that they get the resources they need is a high priority. Also, some of you know I've worked as a court-appointed special advocate for 15 years in Jefferson County. I am very aware of our at-risk students. I'm very aware how they depend on neighborhood schools because they come from families that don't have the resources, don't have the capability to go do the research to find a good school. They depend on neighborhood schools to be good schools. So I am heartbroken, again, along with some of the other directors here, that we are losing those small schools in the small neighborhoods. And then the last area is the complaints on process. Again, a lot of valid complaints have been brought up that we were lacking a qualitative set of criteria, that we were just going by statistics and numbers on enrollment and utilization. Also, concerns that it was a done deal. Well, it's a done deal that we have to do something, that we have to make some hard decisions and close some schools. There was also a concern that it's an all or nothing vote. And I'll tell you right now that I can't imagine calling up each school individually and then doing some kind of Sophie's choice as to which schools we will sacrifice at this moment, when I know that there are going to be other schools that are going to experience the same fate. And if you would excuse me, please, I think I gave you the time to talk with you individually before. I appreciate you letting me speak now. If we were to close just a few at a time and not all of them at once, I think that would just prolong the suffering. I don't think it would come out with another outcome. And in fact, I think at this point, in December when open enrollment occurs, I do think that all the discussions that have been going on will impact it. And I fear for schools that would take a little extension of this decision, they would put in superhuman efforts to go out and recruit and find students and market their school. But the problem is, if we can find some schools, some students to fill up one school, they're going to be coming from another school. It's going to be a type of a shell game, and we have to think of the whole district, not individual schools at individual times. So finally, Colorado has school choice. School choice is good because it allows parents to find the best school for their children. And it should result in greater competition and therefore better outcomes for our students. But in practice, choice can lead to inequity. When higher income, better resourced parents are able to transport their children to the best schools, while lower income, less resourced parents are often stuck in the neighborhood schools with declining enrollments. On top of that, if a district grows in terms of the number of schools while simultaneously experiencing decreased enrollment, they find themselves in the situation that we're facing in Jeffco. We have good schools with excellent staff where there's a strong sense of community, schools where parents feel their children are thriving. But as has been mentioned, their children are not experiencing all the opportunities that larger schools are able to give them in terms of AMP classes, mental health support, clubs, etc. Ever since the August 25th recommendation to the school board by the superintendent, I've continued to ask the district for more information, for answers to the questions raised by our communities. I've asked them to continually justify their recommendation. They've answered my questions and committed to solving problems. Given that I firmly believe the district must close schools because of declining enrollment, the question I ask myself is whether a delay at this point would do more harm than good. A delay might increase communities' trust in the district and the school board, but any delay at this point would essentially push school closures back an entire year, given that we do not want to have our parents lose out on open enrollment opportunities, and we don't want our staff missing out on job interviews. These 16 schools would, as I said, put in superhuman efforts to attract more students. And I've referred to it as kind of Hunger Games, that we would be sending our schools out and their staff to try and survive, try and find some people. So at the end of that next school year, they're not on the list anymore. But we only have so many students, and one school's gain is another school's loss. I fully acknowledge that schools will be closed through no fault of their own, that they were identified at a specific moment in time. And if that moment had been a year or two in the past or in the future, they might not have been put on the list, because that's the nature of choice enrollment. We can't predict what's going to happen next year. Our district is experiencing a 4-alarm fire, and we need to put out the fire now before we can investigate how it started, who started it, and how to prevent it in the future. There's a saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now. I believe the best time to address declining enrollment was years ago. The next best time is tonight, and that's why I will be voting in favor of this recommendation.
Thank you, Director Parker. I'm going to make my comments pretty short. Our principals. You guys, everything we've heard from parents and community members is about you and how much you love our kids and the leadership examples that you set to create this environment for them. You're phenomenal, and you can hear it in the passion, whatever the emotion is, but the passion that all of us as parents have for our schools is because of your leadership, because you love and care for our kids, and you make sure it happens every day. and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. It means the world to a lot of us. In addition, you've put yourselves in a position of partnering on work that is not part of your job description and that we've asked you to do that's been really hard and emotional and taken you away from other things that we've also asked you to do in your building, because instructional leadership doesn't stop just because we add more to your plates. So thank you so much. I know it's been a huge lift, and I am not a crier, but this, you're worth every bit of it. You're worth every one of our emotions, because you're phenomenal. And please let your staff know as well that we put our precious kids in your hands every day, and you do amazing things with them. So thank you very much for that. I have endeavored to be reflective and accessible throughout this process. I know that trust in our communities has been damaged and needs a lot of care and consideration moving forward. This is so painful for so many people. And change rarely feels good, particularly in moments of ambiguity leading up to decisions. So I'm not going to talk anymore. With that, are there any further comments from the board? We owe our community our vote. Any other comments, board? All right. Roll call, please. Ms. Lang.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Dr. Varda?
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.